Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Q&A for Substack. And Donia, do you have any questions? Does anyone here have any questions first before? Otherwise, what I'll do is I will start on questions that I have that have been asked already. Do you have anything? No? Oh, you can't hear me? Can you guys hear me? Oh, you can. Okay. That may have been just her audio. Okay, so one thing that has come up recently that people have asked about is how my shared death experience has informed my my thoughts about healing. And so what I'd like to do is just explain a little bit about that experience. So the question is, how has my shared death experience changed my views on healing and my thoughts about healing? And, you know, this experience is very much like what someone would call, what someone experiences when they have a near-death experience. Like, so Anita Moorjani's book of Dying to Be Me is a great example of how a near-death experience can really shift someone's ability to heal. And if you don't know Anita's story, so Anita Moorjani, the book is called Dying to Be Me, and she basically died of lymphoma. And then what she saw on the other side before she came back basically made her realize that she had created her illness and that she could heal, that she was healed, that she basically, if she came back, that her cancer would go away. And sure enough, that is what happened to her. And it's quite a miraculous story. But for me, through my experience of experiencing the love and the light that is outside of this reality that we experience in our everyday lives, it shifted things for me. And since then, as I've integrated this experience, it's really shifted the way that I see healing and what healing is all about. And actually, I realized that I haven't done a great job of explaining this to people, even my current clients, because I didn't know quite how to articulate it. But this is the thing. Everything that we've been taught by Western medicine specifically around healing is not correct. It's not how the body heals. I'm not saying that treatments don't have effects and that they don't kill cancer cells. Absolutely, they do. But what I've come to understand is that healing, like true healing, comes from divine consciousness. That like when someone is really healed from something and it never comes back, it's because they've been healed through divine healing or accessing higher levels of consciousness. And so then you might ask, well, why are you teaching these 6 pillars? What do the 6 pillars have to do with divine healing and higher consciousness? And this is what I feel like I have not been explaining very well. And it is that the 6 pillars that I teach, each one of those pillars are things that other people may be talking about in healing and that they're important, but any one of those things is not going to cure your cancer. It's not going to make your cancer go away. And in fact, what I'm doing with my current clients in using these 6 pillars is that I'm helping clean their bodies and their minds out by starting to get their food right, getting their water right, starting to connect with the ground and the sunlight and detoxing through saunas and all of that stuff. And then the emotional work and the mindset work, how to use your mind, and then the spiritual work, all of that is actually to clean you out, because most of us are inflamed and are taking in, bad food that doesn't make our body function at the highest level, but it also diminishes our consciousness. So all of these pieces that I'm teaching yes, they're going to help with the cancer, and they're going to, diet alone. If you follow a strict metabolic approach, you can put cancer into remission, but it doesn't make it go away. So with each of these things, what I'm doing is cleaning people out and getting them aligned to prep them so that they're available and able to access higher levels of healing. And so this is different. This is a different approach than like even an integrative oncologist who's doing the things. They're giving you IV mistletoe, they're giving you IV vitamin C, they're doing these supplements because the idea is those things are going to rid your body of the cancer. I'm doing the things that I'm doing because, yes, they're going to have an impact. Your body is going to be less conducive to allowing the cancer if we do all of these things right. And we're setting you up for allowing true healing to occur. And I also believe that all healing is spiritual, that every crisis that we have in our bodies or in our lives. So it happens to be that, cancer is what I help people with, but crises can come in all different ways. But when your body develops cancer, there's something deeper that needs to be healed. And my interpretation of after having that shared death experience, and then also spending a lot of time around death before that experience, and then also now, connecting with people as they're transitioning, what I've come to understand is that the whole purpose of why we are here is to simply be ourselves, to be an authentic version of yourself. And that you're here for a purpose. There's a reason why you were born. There's a reason why you came in to live on planet Earth at this time. And most people never figure that out. And I see a lot of people who have been very close to their end of their own life finally realize that. Like, oh, I just needed to be myself. I wish I hadn't listened to what everyone else was telling me and telling me to do. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing is to help clean you out, get you the right inputs that we've been basically conditioned to not get in modern society, just because that's the pace, that's the way our life goes, right? To shift away from that lifestyle to become more aligned with ourselves and cleaned out, so we can start to see, who am I? Like, who am I at my core? And what is this cancer showing me? And I'll tell you, a lot of times, the lesson to be learned is that you're living someone else's life, that you're doing things that you've been told to do, you've been conditioned to do, but they're not true to you. And so one of the biggest things that you can do through a cancer diagnosis to help yourself heal is to start to get to know you. Like, what lights you up? What makes you excited? What brings you joy? And start to do more of that and look at, okay, like, why did I have to get sick? What is there that I'm not seeing? And that how could I use this illness? Because, and I've said, you guys probably heard me say this so many times, but cancer in Chinese is two symbols. Danger makes sense with a crisis. That's the first symbol. The second symbol is opportunity. And so you have an opportunity with cancer to change, to wake up, and to realize you're here for a reason. You are created perfectly, the way that you were designed, the way that you look, the way that you speak, none of that's a mistake. And that you can see, okay, what is it that this cancer is showing me about how I've been living that is out of alignment with my true, authentic self? And so I know that maybe sounds like really like, wow, that's really out there coming from a medical doctor. But this is what I'm doing. And actually, I realize I'm doing people a disservice by not explaining that. Like, these 6 pillars that I'm teaching you are really important, actually, but they're not important like you have to do it exactly this specific way because this is the way that you cure cancer with diet or with water. It's like, because then when you get into that, you're into that energy of like, there's a right and a wrong way to do this. And in my mind, there's not a right or wrong way to do this. But what we're trying to do is we're cleaning you out and getting your body to lighten up and be clean enough to see what you need to see. So anyway, I wanted to start with that because I've been asked, like, how did that experience, that shared death experience, change your philosophy about healing? And what I'll say is that it completely fundamentally turned my life upside down. And you can see that, like, if you guys follow on my podcast, you can see that after I had that experience, I realized that what we were doing in medicine is backwards. And if you look at Western medicine, what is happening is that you go in, you're told you have this physical illness. Most of the time you're told, we don't know why it happened. Maybe it was just bad luck. It wasn't genetics, because only 5 to 10% of the time it's genetics. So who knows? But you have to do these treatments that we tell you to do, and they're going to make you way sicker than the cancer is going to make you. But the idea is that if we kill the cancer, then eventually you'll come back. But what I saw after the shared death experience is that yes, there's benefit to treating cancer and killing cancer cells, but there is also a price to be paid for giving toxic therapies that diminish the body's ability and actually make you less clear and less able to see what you need to see for your cancer. And so I've become much more skeptical about the benefits of traditional Western oncology, and ultimately had to make the decision. I was like, I don't believe in this model anymore, and basically blew up my life to make this shift, to be here. And then, as I've communicated this, I've communicated the pieces, the pillars, because like this makes sense for people. But I think now I'm going to start talking about this in the way that the pillars are a way to prep you for what is your birthright, and that is divine healing. All of us can heal. If Anita Murjani can come back from the dead, body full of lymphoma, come back and it goes away completely, it's never too late for anyone. So even if someone is at the very end, there is hope for healing. And I think that that's beautiful. And also the other thing that I want to say is sometimes this scares people because they're like, oh, wow, it's just like way easier to just like drink my green juice if that was going to cure me than to think that it's like some spiritual thing. And it's like, no, it's not a big deal. Because once you start to clean yourself out, you'll start to have awarenesses that direct you in the right direction. Because the way this life is designed, this is another thing that I know after my shared death experience, is that the clues are all around you. It's just that we're too inflamed, too dense to see them. And as you start to clean out and lighten up, you'll start to see, oh, like this is what I need to do right now. And it's just a path of following that. So I wanted to start there just because that's a question that I've been asked, and I wanted people to kind of know where I'm coming from with my approach and why it's not just like a traditional integrative oncologist who's just giving you the things that you need to do. Let me look and see if there, what questions are here. Okay, so this is from Maria. And going back to the water discussion, I'm trying to choose the best option. I've clean well water, tested for contaminants with plenty of minerals. I'm most interested in structured water system without investing in a full water purification system that someone might need. Also interested in hydrogen water, but I'm unclear what are the best options for this. Okay, so this is a great question. Now, if you have, there's 4 steps to getting optimized water. So the first one is filtration, making sure your water is clean. The second is balancing with, I knew that was going to happen, the Zoom effects. But second is balancing with minerals. The third is structuring your water. And the fourth is energizing. So if you have the filtration and the minerals done, which this is with clean well water that's well mineralized, that you've got those 2 things already done. There are a couple options that you can do. One, the cheapest option is to use an analemma wand. And maybe Shelly can drop that link in the chat for the analemma wand. But the analemma wand is, I think it's $180. And what it does is it structures and energizes, which are the 2 pieces that you need if you already have filtered and balanced water. So this is like what I would recommend if someone had reverse osmosis already and they don't want to buy a totally different system. I would just basically get your minerals and then use an analemma wand. So that's kind of my simplest option from that standpoint. And with your well water, Maria, I think that would be a really simple option and not that expensive for you. Now, if someone has reverse osmosis and they're wanting to know what to do for minerals, in addition to using the analemma wand for structuring and energizing, you can do a couple things. One, you could just add a pinch of Himalayan salt or Celtic salt or volcanic salt, some form of like natural salt. So natural salt is usually gray or black or pink, like not white. So white salt is not the kind of salt that you're wanting to add into your water, but basically some natural high quality mineral salt. You can just add a pinch to your water. Personally, I don't love a pinch of salt in my water, so I don't do that, but that is an option. There are also mineral supplements that you can use, and one of them is a fulvic humic blend, mineral blend that you can buy. And I think Shelly, you might have that that link as well. That is an option for you to use minerals. And then the last one is Quinton water, which is isotonic seawater pulled from the specific plasma. And I forget where, it's the Mediterranean, I think. And basically you do 1 ampule a day, and it's basically like salt water, and you just take that down and you don't have to put it in each glass of water that you do. So that's what I would say about water. And let me look here and see what else we have.
Katie, I'm just going to pop in here really quick. It says Maria said that she has neuropathy and was wondering if there's another option besides the wand.
Yeah. Okay. So another option that is more expensive but will structure the water in a very stable way is called the Vitalizer Plus. And this looks like a blender. I think it's $800. I don't know, Shelly, if you have the link to that. Do you have a link to that? Vitalizer Plus?
I think I do. I'll grab that.
Okay. So Vitalizer Plus is a countertop, basically looks like a blender, but it's not a blender, and you cannot do this with a blender. So don't think that you could just buy a blender and structure your water with it. But basically it has a mineral block in it. So it's good actually for people who have reverse osmosis, but it's a more expensive option. But basically what it does is it structures the water. It does not add light. And I'm actually not sure of another option unlike that's similar to analemma wand that would just do the light piece of it. But I can do some research, and if we come up with that, we can put it in the Substack follow-up. But that would be, the Vitalizer Plus is actually a really good way to structure your water. And that's actually what I had done before I recently bought the Spring Aqua Wet 7 system that does all of those things. And the last question actually that you asked about was hydrogen water. And so hydrogen water, the idea is that hydrogen is an antioxidant. And so if you have cancer antioxidants can be helpful because if you guys were at my nutrition workshop, basically the problem with cancer is that cancer cells use fermentation for their metabolism, but that's not the healthy, normal, like the most optimal way for cells to use nutrients and metabolism. The healthiest way is oxidative phosphorylation, but oxidative phosphorylation requires antioxidants like appropriate nutrients and functional mitochondria. But so adding in antioxidants can be very helpful for cancer because we're shifting that balance away from the cancer cells that are doing fermentation and helping to give the right nutrients to our healthy cells that are using oxidative phosphorylation and need those antioxidants. So it does that. It shifts the balance from the cancer cells to the healthier form of metabolism. But then also the hydrogen acts as a scavenger of free radicals, which fermentation, one of the byproducts is it creates free radicals by using the oxygen, and that oxygen, those oxygen radicals cause the DNA damage. And so the free radicals can help scavenge that. Now, the hydrogen system that I'm using is Spring Aqua, but that's a whole, basically it's a full filtration system for my house that does all the process. It filters, it mineralizes, it structures, and it energizes, and then it also has the option to add the hydrogen. The other options, there are other options for making hydrogen water, and the only thing that I would say is I have not researched all the different options, but I would say hydrogen water can be beneficial, but you should not be using hydrogen water during chemotherapy. So when you're having like your week of chemotherapy, you should not be using hydrogen water because chemotherapy creates free radicals to damage the cancer cells. And if you're giving hydrogen water, you're basically scavenging those free radicals. And that's why when you're getting chemotherapy or radiation, they'll often say, don't take high doses of antioxidants because they don't want it to negate the effects of the treatment of the chemotherapy. So hydrogen water is an antioxidant, so you don't want to take it like when you're having active chemotherapy. Now, most people's chemotherapy is like, you have a cycle and then you either have 3 weeks or you have 4 weeks before you have your next cycle. Occasionally it's dose dense and you have every 2 weeks, but basically in those weeks in between, you can take it and it'll be fine. But during the week of chemotherapy, I would not use hydrogen water. Now, the other thing about hydrogen water is that there are a lot of systems. I have not looked into all of the like different ways that I've looked at all the different ways you can create hydrogen water. I don't know all the brands that do hydrogen water, but I can tell you the things that you don't want. You don't want hydrogen water that the hydrogen is created by electrolysis, which is basically electrocuting the water. Electrocuting the water has an impact on the water itself, and it basically it affects the water that you're taking into your body. You're basically drinking electrocuted water. We don't have good data to say exactly what the biological effects of this are, but the people who are very knowledgeable about water will say that this actually, people who drink like Kangen water is the best known example that I can think of, that they're kind of on edge and like edgy and, this kind of feeling. And some of that may come from the fact that they're drinking this water that's been electrocuted. I don't know. I will confess that I don't know that that's true, but there are 3 ways that you can create hydrogen water. One is electrolysis, which I don't recommend. So you would just want to look and see if they're using electrolysis. I would pass. The other ways are magnesium, which is the way Spring Aqua does it. And then I think it's potassium is the other way, and I'm not sure. But basically the only thing you want to avoid is if they're making it with electrolysis. So hopefully that answers so Maria, you're saying the company seems to have a whole house option, but you rotate cover that in the other. Are you asking about Spring Aqua, Maria, the company that has the whole house? So I'm not sure if you could say that, that would be helpful for me to know what you're talking about. The Spring Aqua does not have a whole house system yet. It's actually just filtered water for drinking water. They're working on a whole house system so that the water that comes out of your shower and your bathtub and all of that is clean. But they don't have that. Oh, the Analemma is working on a whole house system. Oh, they do. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm not sure. And I know I didn't, the water webinar is not until a few weeks. So in the water webinar, I probably will not be talking about Analemma's whole house system because there's a lot of things in the water webinar. The basics that I just described is like just scratching the surface with water. So there's going to be a lot of other stuff we're covering in that workshop. Yeah, the Spring Aqua though, I'm actually next week, that system, the whole podcast is about Spring Aqua, and there's a Substack coming out as well about Spring Aqua and why I chose that for myself. So you can hear more about there. Okay. Yeah, so if you have well water, the Spring Aqua, you don't need all of that, right? So you just need something to structure and energize. So, okay, let me just see here. Does anyone have questions that you want to either open up or pop into the chat? Oh, is using a hydration packet like IV? Like, is the question, Donia? Actually, why don't you just open up and ask the question so that I make sure. Oh wait, you just went on mute again.
Okay. So I have a system, but to get more hydration, those hydration packets, those IV hydration, is that good for us, or just trying to get as much water in as better?
Well, so IV hydration can be helpful, so they have Myers cocktails or different things, and now there's like these different IV clinics that are kind of popping up, and it can be helpful, but you guys know how to drink the right water to hydrate yourselves, so you shouldn't need it. But if you're getting chemotherapy or that kind of thing, that sometimes IV hydration can be helpful because you're not, whatever, you may be like not holding on to your water due to the chemo, or so there are issues that can come up in terms of dehydration when you're having chemotherapy, that sometimes IV hydration can be helpful. But I would say in general, if you are mineralizing your water and filtering it and energizing it and structuring it, you should actually be able to drink even less than what we normally say, which is like half of your body weight in pounds per day in ounces. So like if you were 150 pounds, that would be 75 ounces of water. If you actually are drinking water that is well mineralized and structured, you actually probably don't even need that much to get really well hydrated. But anyway, that's the IV hydration. It's not going to hurt you, but it's not necessarily like you need it, if that makes sense. But sometimes also they're putting in some additional vitamins and that kind of thing. And I think that it's, there's potential benefits. Personally, I've done, like when I had COVID, I did IV hydration because clearly it helps with the recovery from that. And the same thing is like with chemo. So if you're having a treatment or you're, sick, where the IV hydration is kind of supporting you through the recovery, it can be helpful because you're not able to drink enough water that you need, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I struggle intake of solid foods at times, and so I'm trying to keep as much water and fluids in me. So I was using those little packets, after you put the water, to put it in to get some more hydration. But again, is it helping or not? So if that was
so when you're saying hydration packets that you pour in your water, you're talking about like electrolytes?
Yeah.
Okay, so most electrolytes are not great minerals. So they're giving you this is kind of a reductionist. Let me see. Liquid IV Oh, I see. So you're talking about, can you tell me what is in that one?
Well, these are just, they say, I get them from Costco. The hydration multipliers, cellular transport technology, non-GMO electrolyte drink mix.
Yeah, so most of these are not great for you because
Okay.
they're basically like taking the stripped down minerals, but not putting in like natural minerals that you would get. Like the way you want to think about this is that the more you can make your water natural, like it would come from the earth, the more it's going to hydrate you. And so I mean, these packets, like maybe it helps a little bit, but in general, and oftentimes they have added color or, flavoring stuff that's not great for your body. So I would say better than that would be just adding, like taking a mineral supplement. Like the Quinton water would be a great alternative to what you just showed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Specific CGM. Okay, so a CGM is continuous glucose monitor. And I'm actually, wait, can you see it? I put it really low on my arm, but I have one on right now because after the nutrition workshop, I was like, you know what? I'm going to see, like most of my clients know this, I'm like this. If I'm going to recommend something to you guys, I'm going to do it myself. And so I was like, you know what? This like the GKI, so the glucose ketone index less than 2, that's recommended by Thomas Seyfried. We've been starting to do that with a few clients, but I was like, I want to see like how hard is this to get your GKI less than 2. And so I've been wearing this, and then I'm also using the Keto Mojo GKI monitor. I bought all of my CGMs through Levels. So Levels is a company that does glucose monitoring, and they have an app that is actually awesome. Their app is great because like you can basically take a picture of your food and upload it, and then it shows basically how your glucose responds, and then you can make adjustments in your diets related to that. So anyway, this one is from Levels, but the actual CGM is a Dexcom 7. But so basically through Levels, you order the CGM, but the CGM comes from another company, which is called Dexcom. And then Levels is the way that you track it on your phone with the app, and you buy it through Levels. So if you went to Levels and you looked up CGMs and Dexcom, basically that's how you would start that process to have a CGM. And the idea of a CGM is that a CGM is giving you continuous glucose monitoring. And so what is really valuable about this is that certain foods are going to spike your glucose, and you don't know what those are until you just put one on and see. And like, for example, certain fruits or vegetables like will spike your glucose, and you're like, oh, I thought I was doing well, and I was eating like an apple with the peel and everything, so you're not like just drinking apple juice. But like for me, I can't eat an apple. Like I eat an apple and my like blood sugar goes through the roof. But if I eat, a third of an apple with almond butter, I do great. And my blood sugar is stable. So it's like, it gives you information. What I like to use the CGM for is to start to test the foods that I normally eat to give me feedback to say, oh, wow, this is like really spiking my blood sugar. Because the goal, if you're treating cancer as a metabolic condition and trying to decrease inflammation with diet, is you want to lower your blood sugar as low as possible safely, right? So obviously we don't want to like drop out with hypoglycemia, but most of us are not going to do that basically, but lowering your blood sugar and then raising your ketones. And so this is lowering carbohydrates and sugars, and then raising your fat intake in your diet. But the one thing that I will say from my little experiment that I've started is getting your GKI less than 2. I'm on like, right now I'm doing a strictly ketogenic diet, and I've been doing it since Sunday, is that right? So this is my 5th day. I'm like nowhere close to getting a GKI less than 2. So it's gonna take, now that I'm doing this, I really think that you kind of need to do strict keto for a few weeks to get yourself into that zone. But then if you're using also a continuous glucose monitor, what you can see is you're starting to learn what are those like foods that you can eat that will lower your blood sugar. And then you can start to like incorporate a few of the carbohydrates that are not so, that don't cause such a high rise in your blood sugar. You can incorporate those back in and see if you can still keep your GKI down. But this idea that you could eat like a moderate carbohydrate diet and get your GKI less than 2, I think is not what I'm seeing, and also not what we've seen with clients. And so I would say if someone really wanted to approach their diet from a metabolic perspective, I would start doing strict keto, measure your GKI, and kind of follow that as a metric. And then once you get your GKI less than 2 and you can keep it there for like a month, then I would start to incorporate some foods back in to see how you can stay in that range less than 2. Okay, so that was that one. Does anyone else have a question that they want to drop into the chat? And I think another thing that I was this week on the podcast that I think is really valuable. So if you guys haven't listened to this week's podcast episode, I would really encourage going and listening to that, is about breathing. And the breathing tool that we talk about on this week's episode is called the Camuso, the Shift. And it's a little necklace. I wish I had mine on me right now to show you, but basically it's a nice pretty necklace. Mine's gold, but they have lots of different materials, and basically you wear it around your neck, and it's a way to calm your nervous system with your breath. So it turns out that if you breathe in through your nose and then breathe out through your mouth more slowly than you breathe in, so say you did like a 4 count breath in and then 8 count breath out, that activates the vagus nerve, which calms your sympathetic nervous system and activates the parasympathetic response, which is rest. And so the Shift, this necklace, is a really easy way for you to calm yourself in the moment and using that. But you can also do this on your own without the tool. And so I like to think about this like when you start to feel anxious or you're like worried about things, or you're going into a doctor's appointment and you feel kind of like, you know, anxious or on edge, what I use as my acronym for helping to get myself to a better place is CAPE. So the C is for calm, and you calm yourself with breathing. If you have the Shift necklace, you can use that. If you don't, you basically would breathe in for 4 and then out for 8 through your mouth. Always breathe in through your nose. We're not intended to breathe through our mouth like some of us do at nighttime. We're like, but most of us during the day, we should be breathing through our nose. So breathing in through your nose for 4 and then out through your mouth for 8. And if you do this just for like 30 seconds, you'll find that it brings your nervous system down. So the first thing is calm your nervous system with your breath. The A is awareness, and become aware of what you're experiencing. Like, what emotion am I feeling? Am I afraid? Am I angry? Am I, sad? But like, once you calm your nervous system with 30 seconds of breathing, then you can have awareness of what am I feeling in this moment. So that's the A. So calm your nervous system, then have awareness of what you're experiencing. And then the P is process. So allow yourself to breathe through that emotion. And one way you can do this is you can just feel the emotion. So acknowledge like where you're feeling it in your body, and then breathe through it. Allow it to be there. Don't try and push it away. Breathe into it and then ground it into the earth. So this is a simple way that you can do. Those of you who've worked with me and have gone to see Will Hahn, he has another technique that he teaches that is also very effective for processing emotion. So that's the P. And then the E is environment. Shifting something in your environment to get you to the state which you want, which is peace, is really valuable. So say that you were waiting in a doctor's waiting room and you were feeling like very anxious or whatever, and you did this, you started breathing, you had awareness about that you were experiencing fear, you processed that fear. The last piece, the environmental piece, is like, is there anything you can do to either bring something into your environment that will calm or soothe you, or change your environment? So if you had time and you were there for the appointment earlier, could be that you get up and you walk outside and you just take a little walk around the building and then you come back in. Or it could be that you have something that soothes you, like imagining scene of you and your loved ones in, your favorite place, or a photo. Like for me, sometimes like looking photos of my animals just like makes me happy. Like I have a couple of videos of my cats that are just like silly that I just like to look at, and I'm like, it makes me happy. But these are things you can bring into your environment. And actually the shift necklace is something that is environmental. That's something that people can put in their environment, on their body all the time, to help them shift out of these stressed states. Does that make sense? So Shelly, if you want to drop that in the into the chat. So C is for calm, which is breathing. A is for awareness. What emotion am I experiencing? P is for processing that emotion. And then the E is environment, shifting your environment to bring you to a state of peace. Okay, perfect. You already put that in there, so that's great. Okay, what is your opinion on treating nerve pain caused by radiation? Oh, okay. So ketamine. So do you want to open up and ask that question, Kim, specifically, so that we can understand? You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello.
So my question, I didn't know if you'd want to answer that in this forum, and I completely understand if you don't. And it is something that I heard you mention. You and I haven't talked about it in any of our privates, but I did hear you sort of anecdotally mention a reference to it on a podcast, and I thought, oh gosh, I want to ask her that. I've tried so many different things for the radiation damage. And my pain management doctor has recommended a ketamine IV, and I've heard varying opinions on it, and I would just love yours. But can I just say quickly before you answer it?
Yeah.
I got the Spring Aqua system and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, just from my own experience, that I've tried so many water systems, and I'm like, yeah, it's like cleaner, it tastes better,
Yeah.
But the Spring Aqua, I feel better. So like, and
Agreed.
I don't know whether it's the hydrogen. I drink the hydrogen water. I just use the regular, like, structured water for watering my plants and everything.
Right.
But I also have noticed a difference, and that is why I brought him on the show for next week, Kenny Lee,
I
the
can't
founder.
wait to hear it.
Yeah. So thank you for that. But no, I'm happy to answer this question about ketamine. And let me explain for everyone else what ketamine can be used for, and then also the other drugs that kind of fall into this category. So ketamine is used a lot like psilocybin. So if people have heard about this, psilocybin and ketamine can be used to help people either have kind of awakenings around a diagnosis, or also help with symptoms or syndromes that have been not adequately managed with conventional therapy. But the interesting thing is, and I love that you bring this up on this call, when I started the call by talking about that all healing comes from consciousness, is that
Right.
these drugs are an easy way to access higher levels of consciousness.
Okay.
So that is the mechanism that they work through, is they create like an opening in consciousness that helps, allow this divine healing. Now, what you heard is that I said on a podcast that I won't do these therapies, and I won't
Right. Yeah.
offer these therapies. And I'll
Yes.
tell you why. And I
Okay.
don't have an opinion that you shouldn't do this or other people shouldn't do this, but because of the mechanism of action being affecting our consciousness, the practitioners who do these therapies actually need to be able to understand what they're doing. And these therapies, so IV ketamine is like a new one that was not given by shamans, but psilocybin is basically, why am I blanking on the, it's like mushrooms, basically, LSD. It came from plant medicine. And so this historically was only used by shamans. And the reason why is because shamans can see your light body. Like we have a
Oh, wow.
physical body, but we have a light body that is around us. And this is like part of the Taurus, that if you look at like biofield tuning or that kind of thing, they're working on your biofield and your light body. Okay. So our light body goes out like 6 feet. Oh, with COVID, why did they tell us to stay 6 feet away? Is because 6 feet is the light body of our body. Of course, they didn't say this, but you're keeping everyone away from each other's light body, which actually is detrimental to our health. We do better when we're interacting with other people and having other people within our space, the people that we love, right? Obviously. But so the reason why I said I would not do these therapies is because you actually can do harm to someone's light body if you don't know what you're doing. And when you do psilocybin therapy or ketamine therapy, they talk about the set and the setting. The set is like how you're giving the drug and how you're setting the person up and walking them through. And then the setting is the place that they take it. And they focus on this heavily because if you get the set or setting wrong, people can have bad trips and they can have permanent problems afterwards. And this has to do with the
Interesting.
light body. And so because I can't see the light body, and I know that these doctors or therapists who've been trained in these therapies can't see the
Yeah.
light body, I personally would not take that risk. And I also know through the work that I've done personally, and then I'm now doing with clients, that you can access higher levels of consciousness without these medications.
Ah,
So for cancer treatment, for my programs, I won't offer them because I know you can do this without. It's harder without. It's easier.
Yeah.
The drugs are like a shortcut to that direct, experience of consciousness, but it doesn't come without risk. Now,
yeah.
ketamine may be slightly different than psilocybin, but it has similar effects. And so I'm just cautious about all of them. And what I would say is, I understand your condition, like your, intractable pain that hasn't been managed appropriately. It may be worth the risk for you. But I think it's
Yeah.
one of the things where, and this is obviously, you guys, I didn't say this at the beginning of this call, but none of this is personalized medical advice. What I'm wanting to give
Right.
to you guys is general information so that then you can make the best decision for you.
Right.
But that is why I said on that podcast that I wouldn't do it myself. And that's why I won't do it in my practice. Now, if at some point I awaken enough that I can see the light body on people, I'll offer that treatment. But until then, it's something I
Yeah.
won't offer.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I appreciate that perspective. I mean, obviously, it's administered in a pain management setting, so it is with no emotional involvement from the practitioner. It's just an IV, you're on your own, basically. But anyway, I do appreciate your perspective on it. But another quick question, will you be addressing at some point in any of your podcasts or workshops how to access a higher level of consciousness? You
Yeah,
just
so
mentioned that you're doing that. Yeah.
yeah, so actually next Friday, and this is like a realization for myself that I, need to be expressing this better. So next week I'm interviewing someone. The episode won't come out next week, but I'm interviewing another doctor who had a near-death experience, and his whole teachings right now are about teaching people how to access higher levels of consciousness to heal. So we'll be addressing that.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Let me. Okay, I know that emotional and spiritual work is a lot less tangible. What are you noticing happening? How does it play out in the healing? That you recommend Psych K and emotion code. What are you seeing happen for those clients? Okay, so this is a great question. So all of these things, right, in and of itself is not going to be the thing that, like, we're going to be like, oh yeah, that is what cured their cancer, right? But what I notice with the emotional work is people lightening. So when most people who come to me initially, they're heavy, like they're dense from, the diagnosis is traumatic in and of itself, and there's so much fear and there's so much weighing on you when you're experiencing cancer, and that is affecting your overall consciousness and your frequency and your ability to heal, right? And so one of the biggest things, or people can come to me and they're very conflicted. They like know that they can heal, but then they're like, but I'm so scared and I'm not doing it right. And maybe the diet's like, and this and this and this. And then when they first start working with me, they're sending me like 1,000 things a day. Like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing the hyperbaric tent? Should I be doing the sauna flag? Should I be like, so just like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And I think this is common, that we want to make sure that we're doing the right things, right? We've kind of been conditioned that there's a right way to heal or to do anything, and that you want to do it right, right? So I see this for the people who come to me. What I see when they do the emotional work is they start to lighten. They start to be less clingy to the things that I need to do, and start to lessen their grip and start to have a little bit more ease. It's like they're starting to breathe. They're starting to see more of the things that they need to see, and they just feel better. People who do the emotional work, and what I love about Psych K is that it is not traumatic to do it. It's easy. You can, in one session, can get so much benefit, and then people feel lighter. And so that is my experience, and that is my own personal experience from doing that work. So I took over a year off after I left Western medicine, and I knew that I needed to, my crisis was this shared death experience that basically like turned, if my life was a purse, it just turned the purse upside down. I was like, dropped everything out on the floor, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, how do I put all this back together when I built my whole life to create the career that I had and the life that I had? And so I did my own healing, and I used Psych K in that process, and I became lighter. I was really heavy when I left medicine, and I was like, how do I do this? Do I get training? Like, how do I step into a new way of healing? Because I didn't trust anything that was out there anymore, frankly, to go do someone's program or to do some certified training. I was like kind of scared that I'm not sure what's correct, right? So I started tuning to what was true for me and building my own education. but I needed to do that emotional work to release the heaviness that I had. And so I felt lighter from doing that as well. Yeah, enlightening, it's not an accident. Like we are, this is one of the things, if you talk to someone who, like, so this Dr. Anup Patel, who I'm going to interview next week, he talks about how the light, we are light. Like we just perceive ourselves as solid because that is the dimension that we're in this unified field that we're living in. But what he saw when he crossed over was that we're not these physical beings. This is all just a perception through our senses, but that we're light beings, really, at our core. And so, yeah, it's not an accident that as you do the emotional work, you're lightening your density. You're becoming more like your true self, which is a light being. Yeah, so Maria's saying I tried ketamine with a doctor and it didn't help me, but now I see it's inappropriate in this medical setting. Yeah, so that's what I would say is that, like, this is what I would just, and also one of the things for you guys is to tune into your intuition. Like, what is your intuition? This is like something for Kim, who brought up the question about the ketamine, is like, what is your intuition saying about this treatment for you? And tuning into that. But then, yes, absolutely, some of these drugs that are just given willy-nilly in these medical clinics can be inappropriate, frankly, for the setting that they're being used in. But the doctors are trained in a system that doesn't teach them these things, right? So in some ways, like, the doctors, I don't think they're meaning to harm people, but they can absolutely harm you, and you want to just be cautious about what you sign up to receive from them. Okay, so I think that is all the questions that I see in the comments. Let me see. Big question: can you make these shifts in the contiguous your life without blowing it up? Is that the question? About like whether you can, yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna just be honest with you guys. Most of us probably need to blow up some of our lives to live a life that's authentic to us. And this is what your crisis, cancer, is showing you. And not that you have to blow everything up like I did. You don't have to like have everything fall apart and put it all back together. But this is what I saw when I was, sorry, I have children who've come home from, I don't know, taking breaks from school or something. I have a senior who just, I don't know what the schedule is anymore. So my dogs follow. But basically, you don't need to blow up your whole life, but you need to be willing to look at your life really honestly and like take off the glasses that most of us are wearing, that we're lying to ourselves. We are our biggest liars. Like, we lie to ourselves all the time. Like, we know when things in our life need to shift, but we don't want to because it's not convenient. And this is the big thing that happened for me after my shared death experience, is I realized that the stuff that we've been conditioned to think is important in this life, when you get to the end of this life, you'll realize are not important. And so if you have the understanding and the knowledge that I'm here to be this special little snowflake, that there's never been one like it before, and there's never going to be another one like you again, Maria, you realize that anything that you're doing that is putting you out of authenticity with yourself in your life needs to shift. And you don't have to do it all at once. You could do it little pieces at a time. Sometimes it's easier just to blow it all up. Like for me, there was so much that needed to change. I was like, I don't know what to do. I just, like, the only way through this is just to let the pieces fall where they may. But what I would say is just getting honest with yourself and stop lying to ourselves. I think most of us lie to ourselves all day long, and just start to say, like, okay, I see this. I don't need to act on it today, but I'm going to take little steps to start to shift it. And if you start to do that with, little things, you can make progress over time. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Does that help? Do you want to open up? Oh, wait, you're on mute. I love that you're in the sun and the sun is so bright that you can't see the mute button. I actually love that because
That's why
that's good. Yeah, you're in the grass, in the sun. I love
I'm
it.
earthing. I've been multitasking. I exercised and earthed during this. Um, that's because I had to take out an hour that I don't really have. Yeah, I was actually asking it because I thought it was a question that should be recorded and for people to hear. It's
Aw.
something I see because I'm in touch with lots and lots and lots of women going through breast cancer, and it's a really difficult thing as a practitioner because, of course, you can't tell someone to blow up their life and leave their husband and all the other good stuff. But yeah, I'm very, very aware of it, and it's just something that I thought was a good thing to bring up in this
Well,
place. And yeah,
thank you for that. I love that. Tell what kind of
yeah.
work do you do?
I'm a nutritionist.
Okay.
I work mostly with, well, I have kind of a complicated situation. I volunteer a lot on cancer forums and help a lot of women who have breast cancer, but I only work with women who are in remission because I feel that they need to be working with someone like you. And so I do try to encourage women who are going through the process to work with someone who can help them manage all the aspects and not just what I can do. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Well,
But,
and actually, after people have finished treatment, is like they definitely need that help.
and
to
that's when
get
we
it.
really need to work on all that stuff that was led up to all of this. Sometimes you're in the whirlwind of treatment and it's not appropriate to work on diet. It's not sometimes it's just not even doable. And then I think people get so frustrated because they want to be doing everything right. And they hear all these things about, oh, eat this, eat that, and they can barely eat. And it's a very hard process to go through cancer. And I since I went through it, I also feel for me it's too triggering. I don't want to go there with someone. It's just not something that I feel I have the capacity to do. So I
Yeah.
know my limits, and even though I do it kind of online, and I try to not get as involved as I would if I were working one-on-one with someone. So usually it's just pointing people toward resources. That's the
Yeah.
best we can do.
No, that's beautiful. And you bring
But
up a
I'm
good.
sitting here on my beautiful property, and there would be parts of my life that if I blew them up, I couldn't live here. So my goal is to work within being authentic to myself, staying in the framework. And my daughter and I, who's 25, have this conversation over and over again because she was 12 when I was diagnosed, and learning what are the things you can do to be more authentic to yourself within this framework. That parts of it you don't want to let go. I don't want to not live on a beautiful piece of property in Northern California, because if I blew up my life, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd be living in a 1-bedroom apartment. So I figured out ways that I can be authentic to myself and let go of some of the expectations that I might have really pushed myself to do. And that's what you have to do. Is just figure out where it fits for you, like where you want to go with this.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I love that. Well, and I love that you're living the example of that you don't have to blow everything up. You can make the little shifts to become more authentic. And
Yeah.
also you brought up something really important that I want people to hear, and that is during chemotherapy is probably not the time to start a metabolic approach to cancer treatment or really get strict about your diet because it's so hard. And so what I help people, when they're in active treatment is make good decisions and start to shift their diet in the ways that they can, but also being really compassionate that your body cannot make a lot of these big shifts when you're having chemotherapy, and that the time to make those big changes is when they finish.
And it also depends on where you're coming from. If you're stage 4 and you were already very clean and this is something you want to make a shift to and it's doable. But if you're someone who is drinking Diet Coke and eating a lot of sugar, or maybe you weren't doing that if you're drinking Diet Coke, but maybe you were. But if you're eating a lot of simple carbs and drinking Diet Coke, that might be too big of a shift for you. So yeah, it's just meeting yourself and having a practitioner meet you where you are. And I think that some of these things online can really, I think, make people more, really work against their nervous system regulation, because they see all these shoulds and they're panicked. And like you said, they want to do everything. And that can be, the stress from all of that can be worse than the diet. So
Absolutely.
Learning
Absolutely.
where you are and what things you can do to just, work within the context, because actually keto does help with chemo in many cases, make chemo work better. But if it's not doable for you, then it's not doable for you.
Exactly.
So.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much for coming on and asking that question and also sharing your perspective. I really appreciate that. And it is beautiful where you are. Like, I wish that it's like,
well,
I took
you're
the
up
route
there
of
where it's still raining.
I know. Well, and I took the route of like blowing up my life so that I had a house on the lake. And I was, until just recently, living in a tiny little house where my office was in my bedroom. So I hear you. Like, and it looks gorgeous where you are. So
yeah, it took a long time for us to get to this place. And now, of course, we've been here 12, 13 years. And things have gotten to the point where we wouldn't be able to ever do this again. So this is, this is kind of our place. And it's very happy to be here, just spending as much time as I can out here. Got to do a little more forest bathing if I can figure out a way to do it without poison oak.
Yeah, I love it. All right, well, we are over time, so I am going to thank you so much, Maria. It is a pleasure having you here, and I appreciate your question and also your comments. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next month. Okay, take care.